Hey everyone, it's Glitchy Mango here to give you my informal review on Overwatch. So Overwatch is a AAA release by Blizzard. It is full price. It's an FPS with some kind of, I would say, MOBA inspired elements to it. Although I certainly wouldn't call it a MOBA or a Dota style game. It definitely is its own thing. But it's taken the idea of having unique heroes with unique abilities, playstyles, counters, and things like that, and applied them to an FPS format. Some people say it's the spiritual successor to TF2, which is a pretty good analogy. I mean, it pretty much is the next TF2, really. That's a good way of saying it. So I've put a total of about 20 hours between the beta and the full game as well, and I feel I'm ready to give my full opinion on the game. So pros. The game feels great to play. Even from the very first game, I was instantly hooked. It's very responsive. I haven't had any very, very little issues with lag. So the game's just felt like a joy to play, and it's just played really well, which is absolutely something you want in a game like this. So there's a unique and interesting cast with varied playstyles. So not just as a lot of the casts from various different areas, some characters are Australian, some are a bit more, I think one's Puerto Rican, there's, Asian ones, there's a whole bunch of different characters, American ones, and it's cool to see all these different demographics being represented in the game in this kind of blown up crazy style. And then they all have varied playstyles on top of that. So even though, you might not be a tank player, chances are there's probably a tank you like. If you don't like a particular character, there's probably a character you can find that does roughly the same thing. Like, if you like mobility, but you find you don't like Tracer, maybe you'd prefer Reaper, for example. So there's tons of counters to everything. As a result, the actual versus PvP part of this game is really, really well balanced. A lot of playing well. I mean, a lot of the characters are just straight up OP in the game, but that's okay because, yeah, sure, McCree is OP, but you could just play Widowmaker and snipe him from the opposite end of the map and he can't do anything. So even though a lot of the characters are really, really powerful, pretty much every single one of them has counters and ways that they can be played against, which is something I'm a huge fan of, and it keeps the game really well balanced. And also, the various modes and things like that do feel very well balanced for the most part. Some of the weekly challenges are a bit crazy, but for the most part they are fairly well balanced and quite enjoyable. So the music in the game is absolutely great. I love the music. Go and listen to it for yourselves if you plan to get the game or whatever. It's great. I absolutely love it, particularly the title screen music. Of course, you can watch the trailers and things like that too, and you can see like the music's amazing. They did a great job with it, and there's also good map variety. There's a lot of different maps in the game. A lot of them are really fun to play. Some of them are better suited for some heroes rather than others, which is something I'm a huge fan of, and I think is really, really good. It helps encourage you to pick heroes you might not normally pick or things like that. I certainly like it. It's good mechanics. So something that I'm neutral about is the visuals of the game. It's really, really ordinary looking. It doesn't even feel like a next gen title. Like the character models, the gun models, they look great. Like they look amazing. But more like the areas, the maps, the visuals on like the backgrounds and things like that are really lackluster. Like they're good, but they only do like just what they need to do, and that's it. And it's kind of sad when a game like Dragon Age Inquisition has amazing background visuals, and that game was released in 2014, 2 years ago. We're now in 2016, and honestly, I think Overwatch, in terms of like backgrounds and things like that, is the worst looking game. So that's disappointing. I mean, I think it is a good looking game, but like only just. It just does just what it needs to do, and then nothing more. If it wasn't for the really good character models and things like that, I would say it's a bit on the poor side, but it just does what it needs to do. So cons. I actually have a few more than I thought I was gonna, but let's start with the big one, and I'm really surprised a lot of people are just sweeping this under the rug and not really caring. This game's free-to-play. It has microtransactions. For those who don't know what free-to-play is, it is a full-price release, normally AAA game, that also has microtransactions. Like, say, Assassin's Creed Unity was a game people got really mad at for being free-to-play. But of course, because this is Blizzard, a lot of people are just kind of ignoring it. I'm really disappointed that the game's free-to-play, and that absolutely sucks. And that isn't something that they revealed until the game released. Originally, they were saying they might add microtransactions in later. They always said they were gonna. They were always very clear and honest about that, but they said they might do it later, if I recall correctly. Instead, they did it immediately, and they didn't tell us that they were going to do it immediately, so the game was a surprising free-to-play game, which many of us didn't know it was going to be, so that sucks. I think Blizzard could have had more transparency there, but even then, free-to-play is never a good thing. You shouldn't do it. And I really hate how they've done it here. So what they do is they give you the option of buying loot boxes. I'll just show the prices on screen at some point. You can buy them, one at a time or in big bundles or whatever. It seems like an alright way to do it, but the problem with loot boxes, as many of us know from, free-to-play games that have these things, is that you can't control what you're gonna get. As a result, you just get a lot of things that you don't really want, and it is, a lot of people have pointed this out, it's basically gambling. You're pretty much, if you buy those loot boxes, you're pretty much gambling, you're hoping you get something you want, but a lot of the time you just don't. A lot of people are defending it, on this, in the sense that it doesn't affect gameplay at all, and it's purely cosmetic, so people think it's fine. I disagree. I think part of a full price AAA multiplayer only game is you should also include good cosmetic options that are unlockable. I know there are unlockable options, absolutely, but the problem is, once you get past like level 10 or so, they start to get really, really grindy really quickly. And I think it's the same sort of mentality. We've all played like mobile phone games, and we've played one, and they have microtransactions that make the game easier, right? But as you play, the game gets harder and harder, and you kind of can't trust the developers to not make the game artificially hard in order to make you want to buy those microtransactions. It's the exact same thing here. I can't trust Blizzard not to make the progression grindy in order to make me want to buy those loot boxes, and the progression's definitely grindy. Like, there's no arguing that. Those first few levels are pretty good, but again, like, once you start getting into like the levels and getting higher level, it really, really starts to slow down, and it gets really grindy. And I wonder if that's something they did in order to sell more loot boxes, and I think they probably did, although they would never admit to it. There's a lack of game modes for a AAA full price release. The game modes on offer are absolutely shocking. So I say there's only, according to Blizzard, there's like 4 game modes. In my opinion, there's only 2, and I'll explain why that is. So according to Blizzard, the game modes are Hybrid, Escort, Defend, and then, Hybrid, Escort, Defend, and then there's the one where you sort of fight for the territory. I can't remember the name of it, sorry. So those are, the 4 modes according to Blizzard. Honestly, those are all the same mode. Like, okay, so, hybrid mode, you're escorting and then you're defending. That's the same as defense and escort. So both of those modes fall under hybrid mode. Furthermore, the territory one is pretty much just a slightly altered version of defense. It's barely any different to that, where you're still defending your territory, but you're also trying to take it if the enemy team has it or if it's the start of the game. So that's actually a fun mode. I really like that one. But overall, I consider this to all be like one big mode with like slight variations. Like, there isn't really much distinguishing them from each other, and you could basically consider all those one mode. And the reason why I say there's 2 mode is because of the weekly challenges, which is quite different from the actual game, and that's awesome. I really like the weekly challenges. I don't play them that much, and I probably won't because they're crazy. Like, they are absolutely nuts, and there's a lot of insane cheese strategies you can do, or the ones that aren't cheesable are the ones that are like super RNG based from what I've seen. So that's, pretty annoying in a way. I personally prefer the regular game because it's a lot better balanced. But, it's still nice to have those weekly challenges, and that serves as a second mode. I don't count playing against bots or anything like that as a mode in itself. So we're looking at a full-price AAA game that at launch only has basically 2 game modes and also has microtransactions. That's pretty bad. So another issue is the lack of instruction and teaching tools in the game. There are a lot of players saying things like McCree OP, Roadhog OP, Bastion OP, particularly McCree and Bastion. But these characters are characters that really punish new players, especially players who don't know how to play against those characters. If you're good at the game, you know McCree's not OP, he's not. Same thing with Bastion, Bastion's not OP. But if you're not good at the game, those characters will feel really, really powerful. The same thing with Torbjorn, if you're not good at the game, he feels really powerful. And that's just how it works, but that's fine. Like, it's good to have characters like that, but the main problem is that some of those characters like Bastion are super punishing, but the players are never taught about them. So there's so many new players that just like walk into a game and just get melted by Bastion immediately, and the game never warned them, never taught them, nothing. And that's really annoying to have to learn through trial by error like that, or by watching YouTube videos. And, you know, I think his name's Unit Loss Gaming. He does some really good tutorial videos. If you want to learn the game, like, watch his videos, he's great. Anyway, the problem with that is, you know, it's super punishing, and they very easily could have had, like, a proper tutorial. You know, they could have had a section where, you know, there was a Bastion, and you'd walk in and he'd melt you, and the game would explain to you how to beat Bastion. And things like that. Just things that, you know, could have been, like, kind of like a mini campaign, I guess, or maybe just a series of a couple of missions that just teach you the mechanics of the game. Like, don't trickle in, you know, don't walk in front of Bastion's turret. Don't try to outlast Torbjorn's turret, because it actually does a lot of damage over time. Things like that, you know, don't fight McCree in close range. Listen to his spurs. If you hear them, get out. Don't fight him in close range, because odds are you're gonna lose, unless he's already off 2 people, in which case his abilities are down and he might be reloading if you're lucky, and you might be able to get him, unless you're McCree yourself, in which case go for it. So, you know, those are just things that the game should have taught you about and never did, which is a huge problem, and again piles on those things I said earlier. Just to move on from that, there's some things that I think feel like the game is still in beta. Like, okay, so one of the big ones, like, there's just a few little things that just feel like beta or alpha problems and not something that should have made it into the full game. So one of those is like not being able to equip skins pre-match. That's something that people were asking for in the beta. You know, for some reason Blizzard never did it. This is kind of annoying because this was something that is literally done in Dota 2. It was done years ago in Dota 2. Like, don't give me that it's too hard to do. Like, again, it was done years ago in Dota 2, and that is a free-to-play game. That game ain't charging people money. And it does that, like, straight up for you. It lets you, you know, pre-equip all your stuff at the start of the match. Like, that's just something that Blizzard should do. You know, another thing is, you know, when you're watching the kill cams, it's a bit annoying how they show the wrong game time and the wrong objective progress. So they show the game time and the objective progress for when the person killed you. It would be nice to just have a separate bar just to show you what the current one is, or if they just outright showed you the current one. I can understand if it's play of the game, because obviously, you know, that stuff is irrelevant, but when, you know, you're watching in a kill cam, it's certainly something that, you know, should have been ironed out, I feel. So in conclusion, I've really enjoyed the game. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I'm going to continue to play it. This is going to be one of my semi-regular games. I'm probably going to add it to Pubbling with Glitchy and play quite a fair bit of it. I'm really enjoying it at the moment, having a lot of fun with it. You know, definitely going to keep playing it. But there's a lot of problems with the game, especially, you know, for a full-price AAA release. It just doesn't do, like, a lot of things it should be doing. You know, a lack of modes, a lack of teaching tool, microtransactions. These are things that, you know, shouldn't be in a AAA game. Like, these shouldn't be things that I should have to talk about. If you're charging money for your game, at least put in a tutorial. If you're charging, you know, full price for your game, give us decent game modes. You know, and don't give us microtransactions on day one. These are huge problems of the game, and have really brought down my critical opinion of it. Not necessarily my enjoyment, however. I'm still enjoying the game. So, for enjoyment, I'm rating the game a 8 out of 10. I've really liked it. I've had a lot of fun with it. Again, I'm just saying that over and over again, but hey, that's because it's true. And for critical opinion, I'm giving it a 6 out of 10, which is a pretty bad score for a Blizzard game, especially such a new one. So I was tossing up between giving it a 5 or a 6, but because the game plays so well, is so responsive, I'm going to give it a 6. Give it that extra point. Like, it excels in some areas, but it's also completely lacking in other areas. But again, it did lose a lot of points for that dodgy stuff that Blizzard was doing with the game, which absolutely brought down my critical opinion of the game. So, yeah, that's my opinion. I suppose that's a 7 out of 10 overall, which is a pretty good score. I mean, 5 is your average game, so 7's pretty good. Don't think I'm knocking the game by giving it a 7. That's actually a pretty good score for me. If you watch my thoughts on, you'll see I'm pretty harsh with my scores. That's just how I am. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.